Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Jackie Ma. And today I'm so excited to be introducing a dear sister, Dr. Ezzie Spencer, to come and share her heart with us today and share a little bit about her journey and what she's up to and her incredible work. So, without further ado, welcome, Ezzie. It's really great to be here with you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. So, just to recap for the guests, I sometimes like to tie in like how we met. So, we met through a third party sister, and Ezzie is from Australia. And we had this connection with another beautiful sister in Australia. And so we linked up in Manhattan, and we've been connected ever since. And I've been like watching her work, and I find such joy in watching women grow and blossom and share their medicine. And so it's been really a joy to like watch the journey with you. And I want to talk about your book and just, yeah, I'm really excited. So, let's begin. So, right now you're in California.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think I want to begin with what's on your heart right now. Tell me a little bit about
Mm.
yeah, where you are in your in the cycle of your life and anything that
Yeah.
comes up.
It feels like I'm in such a new cycle of my life. That's really what's on my heart right now. It's so interesting, actually, because I woke up this morning and I felt this such a palpable sense of something that's been actually coming and building for many, many weeks and months. And it felt this morning like I've really landed in the start of a brand new cycle. You don't get to feel that very often on a bigger level, right? Of course, it's also the new moon tomorrow. So yes, of course, it's a new
Absolutely.
cycle as well, but it feels like something which is more expansive in terms of its time and spaciousness. I
Mm,
really feel like I've transitioned into maybe even a new season of my life.
mhm.
Feels very rich.
I
Mm.
love that. I would like to mirror too that I feel something very similar happening. So collective that there's something.
Ooh, I
So
like
honoring
that.
your personal experience and also just feeling this, yeah, this blossoming and this next level of unfurling inside of for here it's autumn in New York and it's just we're moving into like a shedding season but yes I feel you. I
Mm,
feel you. Hmm.
love that.
Yeah. So what's coming through right now is I want to hear a little bit about how many books do you have now?
Oh, I have got I'm laughing because it's a funny thing. I have published 2 books, but one of them was published in Australia in a slightly different format, different name, different title. So officially, if you look at Google, it says 3. And but there's 2 real books that have been published. There's plenty more I've written. There's also a PhD dissertation, which just feels like a book in and of itself, but
Sure. What did
yeah.
you do your dissertation in?
It was actually in therapeutic jurisprudence, which is mental health law. It's about the law as healing. And
Okay.
my first iteration of life on this planet was as a human rights lawyer, which a lot of people are
Oh, I
like,
didn't even know
what?
that about you. See how
Yeah,
beautiful that is?
it's incredible.
So many
Yeah.
incarnations in this one, right?
Gotta squeeze a few in. No, no,
Oh,
no rest this time around.
oh my, I feel you. And it's almost like when you're talking about like this next cycle or season you're going on. I mean, it's like a new incarnation.
It really feels that way.
That's
Yeah.
like, I love that. That's where we are now. Like
Thank you for naming that. Yes.
the brilliance of like, we are consistently rebirthing ourselves. And who are we going to be now? I'm with you. That feels really, really ripe. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, cycle just doesn't seem like it encompasses this feeling. Incarnation, is
Yeah,
it? Yeah,
it's
it's a new
it. It's a new
incarnation.
incarnation. And I would like to, if I may, also just bring in, obviously, we just were sharing privately about you have a new partner. And so, yeah, this new incarnation of like coupled.
True. Well, he's been around for a little while, but I think that the the feeling of really birthing a life together feels really special. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. He's
All right.
going through his own incarnation, actually, now I think about it. So
Really?
yeah, it's really beautiful to be in tandem with that.
Oh, so much magic.
Yeah.
So much magic. And oh wait, so I want to tie in. So I'm like all over the place because there's so many beautiful things, and I trust that our audience will keep up with us because it's
Yeah.
so symmetric. Um, you tell me about the current work you're doing because I want to tie it
Mm.
into your beloved,
Oh,
and I
yes.
want to tie it in for women, single women, and the beautiful work you're doing. So talk to me a little bit about your current business.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So my current business is Relove, and so it's based on a transformational program which supports really at its core for us to learn but also embody that unconditional love and self-acceptance. So self-love, self-worth is really the work at the core. And then from that place, really opening up and having fun dating. So bringing back courtship and romance and play and delight, in the process of finding love, which I feel is a little bit missing in the modern moment. And then really stepping into that next level healthy relationship, if that's what the desire is, of course, but most of the women that come to me do want to be in that soulmate connected relationship where they're met as equals, you know?
Absolutely. I'm with
Mm.
you. Yeah, all the women obviously that I work with, all the women in women's work generally, right? Are like really wanting to deepen and have I think what many of us have seen absent in our world, right? To like be able to experience what does it feel like to walk with somebody in integrity, in like true adoration and care for one another and really centering ourselves inside of a union.
Mm. So beautifully put. Yes. Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God, I just want to bless every woman who's going to watch this with with that, and me included. Like, yes, to more of us being nurtured in relating.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, because life, like life gets so much better, truly. And I'm also a big proponent of self-love and self-sovereignty, and walking the single path is also really, really beautiful. But if there is that desire or the thirst to be in partnership, to then step into the quality of relationship that's going to elevate your life in every single way is just like,
Yeah,
wow, mind blowing, particularly if the experience around relationship in the past has been that it has been depleting in some way, or it has required you to background your needs or your dreams or your desires in some way, or you're replicating whatever has been modeled in the childhood home or in like society more generally, like really stepping into that next level relationship, meaning to your point, like creating something which we don't have a lot of role models or templates for that in our world, in our popular culture, in many of the experiences that we've had as we're looking into our our parents or our elders, for most people, unfortunately.
absolutely. And to know that we can do it on our own terms.
Yeah.
Like we get to write the rules and we get to go along, really, as you said, create it and do it together. It's like that's I think the anomaly and that I think so many women are also very afraid of because when you have been, in your own for a better word of it, when you're learning how to have sovereignty alone and then you're learning how to have to express sovereignty in partnership. I mean, it's a big learning curve, right?
Mm.
So like to transition from an I into a we and right and still hold the essential template of honoring yourself within the we. I mean, it's it's God's work. I mean, it's the biggest it's so beautiful
Mm.
and rich and enormous. So I
Mm.
understand why a lot of people are not capable of doing it. And I'm celebrating all of those that are choosing to like overcome and transform all of these, ideas and programs and beliefs that
Mm.
keep us smaller and sort of indoctrinated into outdated models of relating.
Yeah.
It's big. I'm high-fiving you. You're doing it, Ma. And I'm so glad that, yeah, that you're finding joy in partnership.
Yeah,
Um,
truly.
and are you finding in your work with women, obviously, because you're serving them, so more and more women are doing the work, and I want to be light with doing the work. When I say doing the work, I mean choosing love, re-love,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
So are you finding that your women are drawing quality partners, and that there is like, what is going on
Yes.
in the world?
I mean, this is the thing. It's like there's an abundance of choice out there. And what I actually have noticed going through the pandemic is that it's across genders, this real sincere examination around what is true for us, what do we value, what do we desire, this consciousness around designing one's life and choosing to release those old patterns, choosing to release old blocks to love, and in a very sincere way, wanting to move forward into a very enriching partnership. And so I just think it's probably the best time right now. It's better than it's ever been before. Like,
Oh my God, I'm like soaking this up. Ladies, do you hear this? For all
yes.
of my, my friends and my women who are like, meh, this is, they're not finding what they need. It's not true. There's a broad spectrum and there's more. So keep doing, keep opening, and there is more.
I just I'm seeing amongst the women that I'm supporting, I'm just seeing that when they go through the method, which I lead them through, once they open up, they have the ability to actually see the collective awakening that's going on at the moment, and they're choosing between multiple incredible options. And that's the case regardless of age. So I help women from their 20s through to their 60s. It's regardless of location. And admittedly, I'm Australian. I work in America, of course. I tend to attract most of my clients in those locations, and Canada and Europe and UK and those types of places. But it's happening across the board. It's regardless of age, it's regardless of location, it's regardless of if you live in a small place or a large place in terms of the location that you're in. It's regardless of gender. Like, there is this collective awakening. There are so many people who are wanting to step into love in a much more intentional way.
Mm. It's refreshing, really. It's so refreshing because I have felt, and obviously my own experience is what I'm seeing in my own collective is part of my own inner process, right? But it's so beautiful because I see in the work so many women, yes, so many women partnering and so many women doing the work to prepare themselves to receive partnership. I feel like that seems to be there's a mixed theme there for me. And then beautiful, I mean, these gorgeous women in their 40s who are like, oh my, everybody's like bursting and wanting to have babies and like wanting to be in partnership. And it's just all happening a little bit later than it happened in our parents' generation, right? So like there's a lot of reasons for that, and there's a lot going on there. But I find it fascinating. And I'm finding so many more single men.
Yeah.
Like in my friendships, men like really beautiful men that like want children. It's not just women, right, that are longing for this. And whereas before it used to be like all women, and I'd be like, God, all these gorgeous goddesses and no men. Now I'm also starting to see like, these men want babies and they want traditional families, and there's a real opening and rising of like, I don't know. I think it's like collective preparedness. Like it's all like the sun coming up. Like it's just it's gonna happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. And I love that you're serving the full spectrum too. I think it's so important to work with women in their younger, in their, I'm like, oh my God, reaching that population feels so succulent,
Yeah.
right? Because we already have so much wisdom that we've gathered from the journey.
Mm.
Now it's like they bring something so unique, and to be able to like partner in that way so that they can avoid a whole bunch of the crap that we went through.
I feel like I created Relove as a love letter to myself in my 20s.
Love
You
that.
know, I think if only I had this, but also if I had the bravery to look for it and to open up, because actually I think I was looking for it in my 20s, but I didn't have the bravery to really open myself to going on what is honestly a journey of deconstruction of the self. It's it's not for the faint of heart,
It's not.
and it took me a lot more it took me quite a lot of experiences before I was finally ready to say no. I've really got to take a look at this, and it's going to be more painful for me if I don't. So I really take my hat off to the women in their 20s and in their early 30s, because I think you are just much more courageous than I was. Go you. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So let me ask you something. Wait, hold on. I just had a really good question come back to me. It was, do you believe that it is about a timing, like as far as like being ripe and ready to move into a sacred union, a sacred relating? Do you sense that it's about the person that makes, like, the communion of the two people that makes that readiness, or do you sense it's like singly your soul that is like, oh, I'm ready, so now everything else is ready? I'm just
It-
curious, that question.
yeah, it's such an amazing question. And I feel like, on a personal level, I really felt like I had a mission that I needed to accomplish. And I needed my mission to feel unshakable, inside of myself before I really felt ready to open up and to partner in the way that I have. So I think that there is that readiness, but I guess another piece, particularly if you're someone who's on the path of evolution, and you've come to the planet in this incarnation or this series of incarnations, if you've come to grow,
Yeah.
then you will need to be with a partner who is both willing and able to continue to evolve with you, because otherwise you will outgrow them.
Oh, absolutely.
And so to find somebody who has both the willingness, but then also has the capacity to continue to grow and
Capacity
evolve.
is a very important word. I thank you for naming it, because
Yeah.
yeah, I call it soul capacity. And it is, it's like to be able to be willing to be enriched, right? Like to just, without having to pull somebody along, right? But just from their heart, there is a suppleness and a deep, deep soul desire to be united, to experience something bigger than itself. It's essentially, I would refer to it as like becoming one with God. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, we do that in so many ways. For me, that came through when I decided to be a mother. When it was
Yeah.
like this soul longing to initiate and
Mm.
become one with something more than what it is.
Mm.
And however, there's many ways we do that, but relating in relationship, and I think relating men and women, like I'm all for everybody doing, loving who they love, but as it relates to this, I think there's something very exquisite and specific that heals and brings a nectar for the planet, that is so needed, about bringing polarities into union, that feels really alive and ripe,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yes, I I'm fully there with you. And I love the link into the divine as well, because I feel like it's happening in multiple dimensions. And the way that I look at it, it's like, or the two polarities, if you will, I'd say a power and love.
Mm.
And so being able to weave power, personal power, to, two individuals be able to hold and then weave that personal power with love, meaning, the full openness, together, it's like what you can like what you can make from that helix is like,
God.
wow, this
Y-
is really tapping into the creative life force in a conscious way, an intentional way, in a way which is actually incredibly fun and playful.
Oh my God.
So much laughter can come from that, shared embrace and dance with the mystery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And I see it in you and I see it in women, period. When they're being loved, self-love is self-generating and that's really important and beautiful. But when that love is mirrored and like there's somebody else who's like, oh, this is happening. And it's like you don't have to always be self-generating and you can be contained and have another being with you. Just it's reciprocity like all day long. And I mean, I just feel like it makes women and men drop so much of the pretense. Just the armor starts to melt, the body softens. There is like an entirely new erogenous experience that happens just in our emotional body, like just the way we are. I was saying recently, like, I've seen women, I see their hips change, like the
Mm,
way that their physical body like starts to like soften. They start to blossom and you can really, really see that they're emanating something that
mm,
feels much more wild um they feel more safe. Like so
mm,
they can like expel and drop away a lot of the things that they normally had to guard.
mm, mm.
Makes my heart so like it makes me want to cry and also like I want to see us all like partnered up and loved.
I mean, that feeling, which I love that you just described it in that way. I was like, yes, yes. And the way that I would describe that feeling is feeling cherished.
Mm,
And what can then spring from there in terms of one's expression in the world is phenomenal and can be so far amplified, beyond what can spring when you are always generating it from within.
I love that. That's
Mhm.
really, really eloquently spoken.
Yeah.
And spoken from a woman who's in that medicine. So thank you. That feels
Mhm.
like a beautiful transmission. Ah, so curious.
Mm.
You make the Relove program after you met him or before?
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, I've been making the Relove program for a long time, back in
Okay.
Thai medicine.
Got it.
I mean, even just to track back a moment, which is to the genesis of Relove, which is when I was working as a lawyer, I was specializing in domestic violence. So this is 15 plus years ago. So I was really, for many, many years, in the sort of in the dark and the toxic realm in terms of the professional work that I was doing in terms of relationships specifically. So focusing on safety, justice, healing, and so that was really my pathway into what has now become Relove, but which has now had a shift in focus. Of
Mm,
course, as a starting point, the threshold point, of course there needs to be safety, and of course there needs to be healing. Like, that's absolutely critical. And I personally became interested through that professional work, through doing the PhD, which was all about the law as healing, coming into more of an experience of, okay, what does the healing and recovery process look like? And then in terms of my own personal experiences, having difficult, intimate relationships, and then casting my gaze to what was an unknown future for me at that point, which is, well, what are the ingredients of healthy relationships and what are the preconditions for that? And so in a way, it's been a good 15 years that I've been developing this body of work, which is, now what I do as part of the coaching work with Relove. But it was a long time coming, and I had to learn all of this for myself. I had to understand for myself, where was I disconnected from my own sense of self-worth. Because there was fear for me, and that was fear around relationships and not wanting to repeat challenging experiences from the past, which I had experienced, but I'd also witnessed. So there was fear around relationship and what that would involve. But then when I got underneath the fear and when I got underneath the anger that I was carrying, because there was plenty of that,
Oh, I know.
I became a lot more curious and realized that the real work that I needed to do was around the way I was disconnected from my sense of self and the way that I did not feel worthy of receiving love, of being cherished, of being cared for, of being in a healthy partnership. And so like that became the very fertile soil, honestly, the most fertile soil that I tilled as part of the creation process of Relove. And then when I had that, when I was reconnected and really landed back in my own self-worth, which I believe is intrinsic, self-esteem, how we think and feel and what we believe around ourselves. You can have low self-esteem, high self-esteem, or inaccurate or unhealthy self-esteem. But self-worth is our intrinsic value as human beings, and that's not intellectual. That's something that we have, and we land back into that. We remember that. And so when I really remembered, who I was and what value I had as a human, like from that place, it was like night and day. Everything was different for me inside of relationships. And I had a lot of fun. Actually, I went through a period of time, firstly being single and experiencing myself as a single woman and having a lot of fun as a single woman. Then I had a process of dating and having like the best time I ever had dating. I was like, I cannot believe this is so good, and people tell you like it gets worse and worse and harder the older you get. And I'm like, well, the oldest I've ever been, and I'm having the most amount of fun I've ever had, and then stepping into this beautiful relationship. And I was like, wow, like I want everybody to know about this. Because so Relove came first. Relove came first
I
before
really love and appreciate, because like so many women who are really doing women's work, the work of moving through the shadowlands to reclaim and come through, I mean, it's pivotal. And it's like, you don't want to go to somebody who just like was born with it, like to be able to transmute, to be able to like know, like you have to really know what you weren't to know who you are. Yeah, it's just, that's that way. It's that way. It's what happens as we're incarnating. It's like, how do you remember the gold?
Yes, exactly. And it's like, I did not remember this gold.
Exactly.
Love was not easy.
Yeah,
Not easy.
it wasn't reflected in so much of what we saw.
Mm.
So to find it and find it on your own terms and your own relating, I'm like, I think it is so brave. It's fascinating to me how it happens, when it happens, and how it's so different for everybody. Because our generation isn't doing it because we have to, right? We have all
Mhm.
the technology. Everybody could, it's a different time. We're not living in survival now, essentially, right? That we have to do things a certain way as our ancestors did. This is
Yes.
now like choice. Yeah, which is a whole next level of sovereignty for real. Like, why are we making the choices we're making?
Yeah.
And isn't it amazing? And I know that but for me, I just feel like saying, isn't it? It hurts, and it's also so beautiful how we prolong love, right? Like we
Mm.
literally are like, no, not today, and then to be able to be like, fuck that. I'm choosing it every day, every minute. I want this body to be loved. I want this heart to be loved. I want to be cherished. I really love the word cherished.
Yeah.
It's very, very beautiful. Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, thank you for this work. It feels really alive and it feels really beautiful to even talk about it with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It feels very life enhancing.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm a believer, that this is a, transmission. Like I mean, yes, I've had very 3D real world experiences in developing this work as well. But there's something which is beautiful and energetic and almost like feels like it's coming through me. So I hear what you're saying and I also get to enjoy it and to benefit it. And thank goodness I get to be a vehicle for this. Like,
Ah,
how cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's so beautiful. All these vessels that just bring through all sorts of deliciousness just by being who we are. And again, touching back into that self-worth in order for us to really, really like open up the gift, right? Like unwrap the package. Oh, it feels so sensual too. It's like, who am I? Right?
Yeah.
What have I come to bless and share the world with and just get to experience with others?
Mm, yeah.
I'm taking in bravery and like, I'm still not partnered up and I intend to be. And I know that it,
Mm,
yes, yes, all of
exciting.
it. And so yeah, I'm in a self-cultivation next level of self-cultivation, right? Because when you've been going through the whole shadowland of,
Yeah.
so yeah, like refining, relating with the inner divine masculine and like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, just
Such a
coming to
wonderful
that
time.
like,
Yes.
ah, yeah.
Yeah.
So looking forward to watching how it gets, created as I'm generating what is being created uh, in the
Oh,
experience. But I have started dating again. I went through like I call it a Mother Mary phase, which I find
yes.
so many of my women go through.
Oh,
It's
yes,
like a
yes,
rebirth and
yes.
recultivation of our sacred virginity, learning how to be to embody the sacredness and the innocence and the truth, restoring all the qualities so we can like get into the fecundity of just being who we are before we go into sharing. It's like, and so, yeah, so I'm out of that now and I'm like, ooh, I'm back in the like, let me pull. Let me, what would I like? Oh, okay. Oh, I like these qualities. Oh, okay. I'd like this. I would not like this again. But just like really diving into that, like what's available, what is my perceptual reality offering, and what do I want to generate?
Mm,
Yeah,
mm. I love that.
so much fun. It is very interesting.
Yeah.
Ah, so I want to hear. I know that you have. Tell me about your first book. I haven't read it yet. I need to read it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first book.
Yeah, I love that question because it's so precious to my heart. So the first book is called Lunar Abundance: Cultivating Joy, Peace, and Purpose Using the Phases of the Moon.
Okay.
So it is not about astrology, but it is about working with the moon as a natural timekeeper.
Okay.
And that was a body of work which I birthed when I was still working as a lawyer, actually. And so it was a very intellectual profession. It was also a very intense period of my working life because of the nature of the legal work that I was doing, which is I was working with abuse. And so I guess on a very personal level, I was seeking something. I was looking for something because I was so disconnected from myself, from my female body, from my cycles, from my rhythms, from my intuition. I knew intuitively that like the hustle, hustle, go, go, go. I mean, I was at work, like forget about the 9 to 5, like it was the 8 to 8. And then I'd go out and get plastered, I'd go out and get drunk, as a way to
Wow.
kind of medicate the pain I was experiencing. And so, I was experiencing really intense anxiety and panic. So I knew that there was like something I had to do. And I started to meditate, and then over some years of meditation, naturally started to come back to a practice which has really entranced me as a little girl, which is,
Yeah.
the moon and the stars. And so,
Mm.
following the moon cycle was a way for me to chart the course back to myself. And then that led me into the PhD. And that was, of course, law is healing. So that was sort of the bridge from the law into the healing. And then I just started to share with people excitedly, like what I was discovering in terms of the moon cycle. And this was before Instagram. This was before, of course, like moon and astrology is, I mean, it's just fantastic. Of course, it's having such a wonderful revival over the last decade, and perhaps no more so than now. But at the time, it just wasn't what people were talking about. And so people started to sort of say, can you teach me? Like, can I do a session? Like, how do I book a session? How do I pay you? And so I started doing workshops and events and one-on-one sessions as a hobby during my PhD. And then by the time I graduated from the PhD, it was a full-time global coaching business. And so it was a really interesting experience. I worked with hundreds and hundreds of women, and then that became the Lunar Abundance book. And so ultimately, I would say it is around self-knowledge and personal power. So, really coming into connection. It's not just for women, but it has tended to really resonate with women because it was my own quest for my own feminine power. And so, really coming into that place of intentionality around creating our lives, realizing that we do get to set our course in life, that there is a tremendous power in the being, in the receiving, in the listening, in the resting in between. And that was what I needed at that time. And it really struck a chord. And continues to, actually. I think it's sold about 40,000 copies now. So it's like it's that and the companion, the sister book that came next. So, it opened up the world for me in ways that were marvelous and magical and incredible, and so far beyond the frame of reference of my mind, because I genuinely thought I was leaving my legal work to become a law professor. Like, I had no idea that life would take me in this direction. And of course, it was the early days of social media that it really took off, and nobody knew what social media was going to be. And so it was a little bit of a magic carpet ride, quite honestly, which had huge highs and also had, of course, plenty of initiations along the way also.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I really am sensing and feeling the bigness and the beauty of what it looks like to just move through life and trust.
Mm.
And how we just have like this tiny, tiny viewpoint, and it's like a speck. And there's this entire oracular experience that is available to us for those that are just willing to like open up and just like kind of leave what we would call normal, or like what we've known as our like zone, and just like sample, just like come out a little bit more and just be opened by life.
Mm.
I'm also curious too, since it's been so long since you wrote the first book and you've been in
Mm.
so many incarnations since then,
Yes.
like now that you now when
Yeah.
you look back, I mean, you speak about it very reverently, like you still really resonate with it. Um, does
Mm.
it, when you look back, do you feel like that's my younger sister, or do you feel like or do you feel like that woman is like alive and booming right now? You know what I mean? Like, do
It's
you
such a beautiful question. I love it. I feel like I honestly feel like a mother to three bodies of work, plus the PhD, which feels, of course, like it was very different, but also original. But the Lunar Abundance feels like my first child. And so, I went through, I mean, and I'm not actually a biological mother, just to clarify, like, and I know that a book is not actually a child, but I'm speaking in metaphorical terms
I
here, but
love it.
that's the experience of it is that I mean, that book was an initiation for me, and, you know, I loved it, and then I had to go through a, you know, a real process of reconciling the way that that book changed me. And there was a period where I wasn't in a close relationship with that book, actually. You know, there was a period of real anger and resentment and bitterness, in fact. And, you know, it was a real journey to come back to the place of real love and reverence, which I now am in relation to that book. So it's a really, a really beautiful question you asked. It's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, I'm always really curious about that because I know in my own relating too, like we morph into something different. And yet all of this, everything that we created is still a part of us. And yet how we, like all the inferences and the ways we relate to things, they do shift. And so, yeah, I was really curious about that. And, I continue to be awed. And even just like you have a podcast as well, we'll get into that in a second. Just being in, even just relating right now with you and talking with other incredible humans. I mean, we are fascinating. Like it is so beautiful to watch women cultivate their own work, to watch men cultivate their own work, but you're a woman and I'm talking to you. So just this like idea that you really can do whatever you want. You want to write books, you get to write books. And that these are profound callings of initiation, as you said. Like it's not like, oh, I have nothing better to do. It's like it's something that you need that is like, drawing you towards it. And, who will say yes and who will pass it by. And
Mhm.
so I feel like so grateful to even witness and celebrate with other women who are like saying yes. Like eh, just saying yes to mothering and creating. It's so
Mm.
vulnerable, it's so potent. It takes you through a nuance of experience. You don't know if anyone's gonna like it. Like, you don't know anything except that it's something that you are committed to doing and you're gonna show up and do it. And I think it's freaking amazing. So I'm celebrating you, really.
But thank you. I receive it. It's really beautiful. I almost feel though that, you know, and partly, of course, it was a luxury to get to have the experience to write, but also I feel like in other ways it was almost reflexive. Like I almost feel like the choice, if there was a choice, the choice to do that was made so far in the past.
Yeah.
It's like it was like when it was coming, it was like, oh no, this is not something which I could turn away from. There
Yeah.
was almost like this reflexive experience of like, I'm here.
Yeah.
It wasn't cognitive.
Yeah.
Or at least not, 10 years ago, it wasn't cognitive. It feels like it was really mission.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I get it.
yeah.
I get it. I love it. And saying, I just want to say to everybody, excuse me, normally I'm in a bright lit room, but I'm I'm traveling and so it seems to be, it's getting darker now. I'm like, oh, it's anyway, so yeah, I understand. It's a calling.
Mm, yeah.
Calling. Yeah. And how beautiful to co-create, participate with life calling you. I mean, even that life longing for you, right? And like the
Yeah.
higher expressions of you, right? That are like, we're going to do this thing. I mean, it's a courtship in itself. Like you
Yeah.
and me, we have a date. Okay, you sit down and write. We're going to do this thing. I find it fascinating how the divine works,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
My heart wants everybody who wants to experience that to be in courtship with the divine.
What a beautiful way of saying it. I love that.
My God.
Yeah.
And with every woman, I'm like, if when they get touched by the mother, when they just like amount to that moment where there's like a soft rupture, right? And they just touch who they are just ever so slightly, and you can see it just it it changes everything.
Yeah. It does that. It does that. It does that. Yeah, it changes everything. Oh, it brings you home.
Yeah, brings you home.
Mm.
Brings you home. Tell us about the podcast. I want to just like loop you around
Yeah,
all of your spots.
yeah, I love that. So it's the Relove podcast. So these are little solo missives, which I do every Sunday, in fact, and they are all about self-love and dating and healthy relating, so but they tend to be more Q&A in focus. And the reason why I've done it that way is because I find I really come alive when someone is asking me for guidance. And so I love the podcast format because it gives me the opportunity to, in a solo show for like 20 to 30 minutes, be able to really give a fulsome answer to a question, which may on the surface seem like it's a little more like practical, and so I always make sure that if someone's coming with something which might be more about like skills, for example, that I give really helpful communication scripts and, give like the practical next steps. But then what I always find is like underneath the questions, there's usually a, what I call an unconscious vow, which is like a block to self-worth, which is a way to really portal home to who we really are at our core. And there's always an opportunity to connect in with our magic, our essence, who we really are as individuals, as people. And I believe that's when we get to become magnetic. It's like once we allow ourselves to be in our essence, but allow others to sense and feel who we really are. The right people then, or the people who are in resonance with that, would then be like, what? It's like you turn your heart light on, and all the fireflies are going to fly towards you, and so each podcast episode, because it's in a more extended format, gives me the chance to be like, yeah, what do I say, to this person when they ask me about a challenging question about my past relationships, and I may feel embarrassed or ashamed about the fact that, say, I'm at a certain age and I'm not in the place where my mind would have thought I would be, because of social conditioning, and all the programming that we get about milestones and all those kind of things. Like, what do I say? So to be able to say, yeah, here are a couple of communication scripts, but also let's dig into the guilt or to the shame or to the grief. Let's actually attend to what's underneath the surface as a way to portal back home.
Amen.
So yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, great. Well, we're going to have all of the links below for all the goodness for anybody who wants to come in and work with you. Um, I'm not quite ready to let you go yet. I'm enjoying
Oh,
it.
I have time.
And I'm also like, oh, do I need to do something about I just am not sure what to
Oh,
do.
I think your light is perfect. It looks really
Okay.
nice to me. Yeah, I guess it's you've just noticed
Yeah,
it's
it's just starting to get
changing
darker.
outside. Yeah.
Um, what do I want to lean into next with you? Hold on. Is it easy for you? Has it been always easy for you? Now, when you launched the podcast, how long have you had it going now? How long has it been live?
A little over a year, I think.
Have you always been somebody it was very easy for you to articulate and use voice, or is this something that has really helped you to cultivate?
Oh, great question. Okay, I love to speak, and I actually feel like for anyone who knows astrology, I have a Gemini moon, so it's like, for me, speaking is actually extremely calming and soothing. Like it supports me to feel relaxed and feel happy when I'm speaking. But I tell you, having focus is important for me. So that's one of the things that I've loved about the podcast, is that choosing a particular topic and making sure that I don't jump into other dimensions and go down 65 other tangents is, there's a discipline in actually just answering the question. And so I've really loved the podcast as an opportunity for me to cultivate that discipline.
I want to thank you for that because as somebody and now obviously I'm interviewing others, but when I do them for myself, well not for myself, for the audience, but by myself, I also have a topic, but then I tend to jump and like get into a full spectrum and it's like, nope, narrow it down. So I really appreciate what you're saying. I think that's why I'm pulling the wisdom there is like, yeah, refine it, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And I do sense that what I really love about what I sense about you is that you are working on different levels. Like you're not going to keep it. You can't not. Like you have to be true to yourself. So it is a full dimensionality, right? So wherever somebody's able to access whatever it is they need, you're going to offer the full bandwidth, and they can plug in with from wherever they are. So when you're talking about like answering a simple question and then knowing that there is a full underbelly
Mm.
that is available for those that are like really willing or ready to like peel back a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
uh, it's yeah, it's beautiful. So much wisdom in that. So I'm going to consider that too now. Thank you for that. So
Mm.
that when I am doing my solos, I tend to just one of my things is like I really just want space. Right?
Mm.
And so when you create your own space, then all of a sudden you can like offer and usher in the bigness, right? Like so it's like, oh, I can say what I want and it's my show. You know what I mean? And then it is, of course, we want to make it so that people can receive it. So I like the question ideas. I'm going to ponder about that a little bit for myself.
Really powerful. And, when you're answering people's questions, then more people will ask you questions. So,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
answer listener questions, people who message me on Instagram with their questions, and I love saying, "Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to cover this in a future podcast." As a, yeah.
And you can even sense that when I'm pulling questions from you, right? It enlivens. It's like it pulls something from your consciousness that you then have to think, you have to bring something out. So I really love that idea. When people interview me, I'm like, oh, I just said this whole thing. And like, where'd that come from? Right. And so you become aware of what's there.
Yeah.
So that's why at these
Yeah.
dialogues are so potent. Yeah. We really assist one another in like, ooh,
Yeah, it's true. It does it. It's really co-creative like that.
it
Yeah.
is, it is. It's like we're all, and it's the kind of the same thing with the relating we were talking about, like this whole, ooh, yay, like what
Yeah.
does the field bring together?
Mm.
And how different it is when there's, an I and then a we, even in the
Yeah.
field of experience, right? It's like it becomes so much more vast.
Mm.
Consciousness like really becomes amplified.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know why the analogy is coming up of like it becomes a big supermarket. First before it felt like like there's just so many more options. There's so much available. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes a choose your own adventure in a way, but you
Yeah.
get to do it. You get to do it together. Yeah, and the bouncing and the reciprocity. I love all of that. It's such a beautiful way to consider it. Yeah.
Yes, it's magic. So
Mm.
your course, is it online? Does it run on its own or do you facilitate it live?
Yeah, yes, both. Well, I've got a course which people can do on their own, which is called Lovable, and then the full Relove experience. I facilitate that live, partly for the reasons that we've just been speaking through, which is that the call and response or the Q and the A, allows for a really rich cocoon to emerge with the participants, and it's a fairly small group that I do it with, and it's a beautiful thing that comes together when multiple people come together, actually, but come together in a space for a defined period of time that can allow for a beautiful shared amplification and growing.
I love that. I want to
Mhm.
weave something else is coming in that feels really interesting. I
Oh
know
yeah.
that you're well traveled, as am I, and I wanted to lean into you. And as we're talking about, like obviously partnering with other
Mm.
humans opens a whole new field. And we talked about our multiple incarnations in this lifetime. I'm curious for you, what is your feeling about having being a woman who's been living on different lands how
Mm.
that amplifies and magnifies you. Like, do you sense that you're almost a different woman, like arriving in each place? Like when the Ezzie that's in Bali, the Ezzie that lives in Australia or in California, um, how these locations, like these earth locations, amplify your spirit and yeah, I don't know, pull more out of you, like make you more of the woman that you are. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I love that question. No, I feel like, and I mean, like unbelievable gratitude for the fact I've been able to live on different lands around the world. And I mean, as a I mean, I can only tell you what it feels like from the inside. I don't know if this is true or not, but as a very sensitive, porous being, someone who's very connected to the land, I tend to meditate with the land. I tend to dialogue with the land. I tend to ask permission of spirit. Can I be on the land? And and honestly, like sometimes the spirits are not receptive, and that's, again, I'm only speaking about my internal subjective experience and my interpretation of that, but I do find that in the circumstances where there is a receptivity, then there's a delight and there's a joy of my being. I feel like I feel really different in different places.
Yeah.
And I feel really connected to the land in different ways in different places, and sometimes like extraordinarily so. And Joshua Tree, of course, just outside of Los Angeles, where I am now, like has an extraordinary spiritual experience that I've been invited into, and again, I'm not speaking, I certainly have not worked with any particular First Nations people in this particular area. I am only speaking about my own internal experience, but the dialogue with the spirits of the different lands have and also asking them, what do you want, and how can I be of service to you, what can I take of from this experience and support you. It's yeah, it's truly magic. It's truly magic. And so yeah, I definitely do feel like I've been supported in so many different ways, in so many different dimensions, because of the land that I've walked on.
And when you're with the land, do you sense that like for the ones, well, whether you have had like graceful connections or not, do you sense like, I know these lands already, these lands know me already, or do they feel like very fresh and new for you?
Um, Very fresh and very new, I would say. I mean, Bali, when I went to Bali in 2008, I instantly had the feeling of being welcomed home.
Yeah.
And I mean, what an incredible gift to have that experience. Bali has been so unbelievably, welcoming and supportive of me over the years, and that tends to be where I go to write. I feel really cradled by that land and a tremendous amount of gratitude for that land and for the people of Bali. But yeah, I would say every other place feels new. Every other place I've ever been feels new.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, for me, there's not many lands that when I arrive on them, that I feel like, oh, this is new. Like it just always feels like, it doesn't mean that it feels like it's home, but it feels like I know
Yeah.
that like we've done this before.
Yeah.
And then there are these, there's specific homes that are like, wow, this
Yeah.
or this is my mother, this face of the mother has welcomed me, and this is not the first time I've been here, and we are kin, and I am so grateful to be recradled in the breast of the mother. So yeah, I love to see how we shapeshift and change in relationship to our environment.
Wow. I love that feeling of familiarity with the land.
It's
That's
fascinating. Like I also feel, depending upon ancestral land, like as soon as my land in Italy, for example, my blood, I can start to hear a chatter that I don't hear anywhere else. It's like my blood comes alive and I hear strong, strong voices, voices, voices in my body. My feet gyrate a little bit. And I just feel really like my physical body is fully alive.
Mm.
Like, okay, everybody knows I've landed. I'm here now. And other places that I go, yeah, I think it's the memory of our bodies and just the relationship and the openness that just like people,
Mm.
spirits of the land, like there is this metabolic, astronomical spiritual experience that we get to participate in everywhere, like with people, with spirits, with land. So it just makes the entire our entire life so much more rich to become aware, right? Like
Mm.
we're in a place and we, as you say, relating to the spirits of the land, like just the fact that we know to have dialogue is is a phenomenon for probably a lot of people, right? Who are not in dialogue. And I didn't always know. Right,
Mm.
but so once you turn it on, it's like, wow, life becomes more, rich. Yeah,
Yes.
and I love too did you do your Astro cart or no? Like, did
Yeah,
you
I do. I love to look at that. And again, I mean, sometimes, yeah, yeah. And I'm a big believer in, you know, I mean, yes, I don't know if I believe in it or not, I'll be honest. I tend to find that and in the past, I perhaps got a little bit too mental about that and got a little bit too distracted,
Yeah,
you know, by that. And I can sort of go into fantasy a little bit and to create, I know that's a tendency that I have. So just, to continue to bring myself back and to anchor myself and to pay attention to, well, how do I feel here? And then like
exactly.
look at, and then from that place, I'll probably look at my astrocartography and then I'll go, oh, well, there we go. Tick, tick, tick. Yes, that works. I want to be here, so I'll take it.
That's so
I'm on my
funny.
Venus line in
I
LA.
love
So I'm
that.
like, I'll have that.
That's
Yeah.
so powerful too, because that is so important
Yeah.
for women for people of spirit to
Yeah.
like really pay attention to what we're honoring versus what something is pointing to. But it's fun to look at what's pointing also and be like,
I mean, I do.
yeah. Did you have lines going through California or Bali or that you were
Oh,
aware?
I mean, my Bali lines are stupid. They're so good. Good in the sense of like, this is your chosen place, as I found out after I'd been going for 10 years. So that
Yeah.
was tremendously validating. And 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 yeah, but my California lines are, I've got Venus on my descent up here.
Oh,
So,
great.
it's all like art and sensuality and
Yeah.
having a wonderful time. And, I have Venus in my 10th house. So it's like, it all feels really nice and aligned.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. I was so surprised when I did mine, but not surprised.
Oh, yeah.
I was living on the island of Malta, and Malta is like a tiny little thing in the middle of the water in the Mediterranean. I have my Jupiter line runs straight through Malta. Like I was like, you can't even make this up. How did that even like what?
Oh.
And so yeah, so it's just really funny how, as we say, we're being moved. We are sourced and we are part of something bigger, and it's like it's not little us. We're part of a bigger co-creative experience, and yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. There's an ongoing humility and joy in that for sure. Yeah.
And the joy, Ezzy, that we don't know what's next, right? Like you're now partnered up with your new beau, and you're in California, and I'm currently in New York, and you and I know as the world turns. I mean, like where, what? I mean, it's such a big life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so
Yeah.
staying open, like, okay, this is what I'm choosing now. And then just really being open to like, how does life want to move? What does life want to create through me? Mm,
Mm.
yeah, that's
I
gorgeous.
love that. Yeah. Mm.
Me too. So before we start to close up, I want to ask you if you were talking to our audience, which is predominantly ladies at this point.
Mm.
Um, is there any like loving words of advice, if there's something that comes through you that you feel for women that are longing to deepen in self-worth, longing to deepen in partnership.
Mm.
That
Yeah, for sure.
that
Yeah, I feel like to trust the yearnings of your heart is something which would have been helpful for me to know, because quite honestly, I feel like I was questing for such a long time. But when I found what I was looking for, to like reference, the great, or to even like subvert like that great song, from the great Bono. It's like, no, I did find what I was looking for, and so I think sometimes there's such a narrative around, enjoy who you are, enjoy the journey. And yes, 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 but that's all true, of course. But like also trust, like if you're being guided and led somewhere, if you're seeking something, if you're yearning for something, it might be because there is something there to be found.
Mhm.
And when I met my partner, we both said, the same thing to each other, which is that, like, I've been missing you ever since I was a child.
Mm.
And we had this mutual feeling of finding what it was that we felt we didn't have within our reach, or that we weren't experiencing in very tangible 3D form. He's a very spiritual person like I am. And so there was just this sense of like, oh, yes, but I'm so glad that I kept going to you. So yeah,
Ah,
trust, trust the whispers of your heart.
receiving that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Ah, all right, everyone, we will be putting the details below. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in. This has been really special. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, and really I can feel the authenticity in the journey with you, which is why I wanted to bring you on, and I'm really grateful. So I'm sending you all the blessings for your new weave with your partner and your new life and Cali and wherever else you're going.
Well, thank you. I'm definitely going to take those blessings for my brand new incarnation.
I'm
But,
so excited to see who the next iteration's gonna be.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
So
exciting.
thank you everybody for watching. Until next time.